We will talk about the role of North Korea in the fighting and in the war against Ukraine on the side of Russia, as well as other important aspects related to the battlefield and war, with our guest later in the program. We are joined by Mikhailo Samas, Deputy Director of the Center for Army Studies. Mr. Samas, welcome to Channel 24. Good morning. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. I'm glad you agreed to meet. I'd like to start with the North Korean factor. Recently, we've been hearing more about North Korea's involvement with Russia in the war. But despite this, the Russians haven't yet deployed large North Korean units in combat. Why is that? Are there challenges in integrating them into the Russian army? Or are there other reasons, particularly regarding the North Korean troops in Kursk? Yes, I believe that this is primarily due to integration problems. The difficulty of integrating combat units or individual servicemen of the North Korean armed forces into Russian command, control, intelligence, and employment systems.
Систем управління, російських систем розвідки і застосування. Тобто, якщо уявити, що якщо би до Росії в цілісному вигляді
That is, if we imagine that units, or units at least at the regimental or brigade level, were sent to Russia, we could talk about their rapid deployment. Then, communication at the regimental or brigade headquarters level would be sufficient for Korean officers to understand the situation and manage as they normally do in their service. However, if you break down the Korean units to the platoon or company level, you will encounter communication problems. This is the lower level of command, when Russian officers, NCOs, and soldiers will need to somehow communicate and manage these forces. Perhaps training is still underway, coherence is still being worked out, and so on. Therefore, it cannot be said that Korean units have a significant impact on the course of hostilities.
Якраз узгодженість дій, злагодженість відпрацьовується і так далі, тому власне корейських підрозділів не відзначено.
I would still emphasize something else. Even if all 10 to 12,000 Koreans are deployed in a certain direction, this will not change the situation even at the operational or tactical level. Russian casualties exceed 1,500 servicemen every day, and these 10 to 12,000 will not change anything. Instead, what is more important is that North Korea is increasingly turning into a military-industrial center for Russia. For example, the demonstration of drones that are very similar to the Russian Lancet, although obviously they are improved with a different launch system, perhaps they are heavier. But the point is that Russia is transferring technology. This is important for several reasons. First, North Korea is very disciplined in terms of setting up production. This is an authoritarian, dictatorial country, and production can be established there in the shortest possible time, as everything happens in a directive order style, without the possibility of capitalist tenders or competitions. Everything is realized very quickly, and therefore, first of all, North Korea can set up mass production of such drones, which will be transferred to Russia.
Таких дронів, які будуть передаватися Росії. Це збільшення, можливо, на порядок.
This could resolve issues with Lancets and their Korean counterparts. It also shifts the situation in the Asia-Pacific region, where it was previously believed that Russia might transfer missile or submarine technology, as the US and South Korea have claimed. However, when Russia begins transferring drone technology with a range of up to 100 kilometers, it changes the dynamic. Just to make it clear, the distance from the demilitarized zone between South and North Korea to Seoul, a city with a population of millions and the main facilities of South Korean corporations, is only 80 kilometers. This includes the range of the same advanced Lancets that can be transferred to North Korea precisely to hit targets in Ukraine.
спеціальних удосконалених ланцетів, які можуть якраз спеціально і передаватися Північній Кореї для того, щоб вони могли бити прямо по Сеулу.
Imagine a massive North Korean strike on Seoul. Say 500 of these Lancets that fly in and start hitting civilian targets, industrial plants, infrastructure, and so on. How will South Korea react to this? South Korea, I am sure, is not yet ready for such massive strikes because they do not have such a multi-layered and extensive air defense system as Ukraine. Therefore, South Korea should pay attention to this because in fact it did not help Ukraine because it believed that if it started to provide assistance, it would immediately escalate the conflict between South and North Korea. The conflict is escalating as Russia transfers technologies that could threaten South Korea, while South Korea withholds technologies from Ukraine that could strengthen its defense against Russia, ultimately strengthening the axis of evil, targeting both countries.
І таким чином посилює вісь зла, яка в кінці кінців буде спрямована і на Україну, і на Південну Корею. От в цьому є проблема.
After Putin and Kim Jong Un ratified the Strategic Partnership Agreement, steps have been taken to show its impact, such as the mass production of kamikaze drones. Beyond this, could North Korea open new production facilities to further support Russia in this war?
Чим ще може Кім Чен Ін, умовно кажучи, здивувати, окрім цього виробництва масового дронів камікадзе, чи можуть ще, наприклад, запустити якісь виробництва і у такий спосіб допомагати росіянам вести цю жахливу війну?
North Korea produces half of Russia's missiles, 3 million out of 6 million. Without North Korea, Russia would struggle against Ukraine due to inferior missile quality, range, and accuracy. North Korea's support helps maintain a balance, preventing Ukraine from gaining an advantage. Our partners cannot reach this level of production, and only the United States announced yesterday that they will reach 55,000 missiles per month by the end of the year. If you do the math, this is certainly not North Korea's capability. There is a paradox in this. The United States produces fewer missiles than North Korea, by the way, and Ukraine now produces more than the United States. But that's not my point. North Korea is actually like in a computer game, a system in which you set a task, and it is fulfilled if you throw in the necessary resources, investments, technologies, machines from China, raw materials from China, for Russian money earned in China for oil. And it all works like a computer game. In North Korea, there are no issues with labor. Today you are a worker, tomorrow a soldier, and the day after tomorrow a worker again. And all of this, of course, takes place under orders. And I emphasize once again that it is actually a slave labor force, an Arab labor force, an Arab military force. They have no opportunity to protest or express their opinions. They will do what they have to do. If North Korea, Russia, and China decide to build 100 munitions factories in North Korea, they will build them because they have the money.
Протестів чи вираження якихось своїх думок, вони будуть виконувати те, що треба буде зробити. Якщо планами
Unfortunately, Russia earns hundreds of billions of dollars, yuan, and so on. There are raw materials from China. There are components from China, machines, technologies that can be stolen in the West and produce both Lancets and submarines. And even nuclear technology is transferred by Russia. This is a huge threat.
Підводні човни, і навіть ядерні технології Росія передає. Тобто це величезна загроза. Всі наші
All our partners who are trying to turn a blind eye to the fact that the axis of evil already exists and is working should understand that it is not just a symbol. You said that they signed an agreement, but no one cares. We look at the facts, and the facts are very bad. They are ramping up production, completely disregarding any restrictions, embargoes, sanctions, and so on. They really act as an axis of evil. And this is a problem not only for Ukraine and our neighbors. This is a global problem because the threat from North Korea to the Asia-Pacific region to South Korea and Japan has increased significantly in recent months. Bloomberg reported that South Korea may reconsider its stance on weapons for Ukraine after Trump's potential victory. The South Korean president is considering changing his position, including on transferring lethal weapons to Kyiv. Analysts say that exporting lethal aid to Kyiv would signal strong support for Ukraine and could benefit South Korean businesses involved in the country's post-war reconstruction. That is, the first signals are already being heard, and at least we know what South Korea thinks about it. First of all, I wonder how realistic it is. Secondly, what are South Korea's capabilities, and how could this country help us during this war? First, South Korea is one of the leaders in the global defense industry. South Korea has been in a state of war since 1953, which has driven its focus on developing and producing advanced weapons. They have one of the best tanks, the K2, which Poland is buying, and Romania plans to buy. South Korea also produces top-tier equipment like the Salt K9 artillery, advanced aircraft, anti-aircraft missile systems, electronic warfare and reconnaissance systems, and high-quality armored vehicles. South Korea has a full range of weapons and military equipment that could significantly strengthen Ukraine's armed forces, especially if produced together. South Koreans are open politically and eager to enter the Ukrainian market. However, the key issue is South Korea's state policy, which must balance relations with the US, China, Russia, and Japan. This is the official position, and South Korea even blocked the imposition of sanctions against Russia after the large-scale aggression. That is, they took a neutral position. They have an official state policy that provides for no lethal aid to Ukraine, because it is, as they say, a zone of active hostilities. I don't quite understand what journalists mean when they write that South Korea may change its position after Trump's arrival. There is a little bit of ambiguity here. South Korea, once again, is looking at only one aspect, not to provoke assistance to Russia and North Korea, which could increase the combat capabilities of the North Korean army in a confrontation with South Korea. When I talked about Lancets, it was a bell, that, dear South Koreans, dear representatives of the Republic of Korea, as they are officially called, you need to wake up and reject these balancing policies. By the way, why does this balancing policy continue? It's very simple. Because South Korean corporations, as we know about them, are the leaders of global production in various industries. And they are not interested in South Korea being in conflict with any country, with China, for example, because it's a huge investment and cooperation, or even with Russia because it's a market. And again, they think it's inappropriate to do this because Russia is influencing post-Soviet countries and so on. So here is South Korea. What can make the situation change? Only the understanding that Russia has already crossed the Rubicon and North Korea has received technologies that directly threaten South Korea. However, it may be too late. For example, I believe that the transfer of technologies for mass production of drones, including drones with a range of up to 100 kilometers, attack drones, is a threat that can really threaten the same corporations, and corporations should think about how to get out of this situation. But to be honest, I don't even know what to advise South Korea right now, because a lot of time has been lost. A year ago we told them, let's start cooperation now, so that Ukraine can destroy the axis of evil on the front line, and not wait until this axis of evil comes to the gates of South Korea in the form of Russian, North Korean, Chinese cooperation. But unfortunately, it so happened that what we predicted happened, and now I don't even know how to help South Korea in this situation. Of course, they need to go to Ukraine and offer to supply any weapons. But we also need to build up our own combat capabilities, including the drone industry capabilities that Ukraine has. This is just a mirror answer. Okay, North Korea received drones from Russia. We are ready to give drones to South Korea if they are ready to go for the kind of cooperation that exists between North Korea and Russia. Intensifying and developing defense cooperation with South Korea would be beneficial and an interesting twist. Mr. Mikhailo, thank you for such a detailed conversation and analysis of the situation. The Far Eastern factors in our war are becoming more and more pronounced. Mikhailo Samas was with us, and we talked about North Korea's decision to actively produce attack drones to help Russia and, of course, to threaten its neighbors from the Republic of Korea, from South Korea. And do you think that the team formation that is now actively taking place in the Mar-a-Lago residence and around Trump is for our benefit or for our detriment? It is not yet clear. And which names surprised you the most? Because I see that American society is surprised by many. But in principle, listen, I did not have high expectations from the formation of President Trump's team, so I am definitely not disappointed. They are, let's say, if we are talking about some key positions, that will have at least minimal subjectivity. Minimal. Because it should be understood that Trump is recruiting his team on the principle of absolute loyalty and lack of serious ambitions that could pull the blanket over himself. So we will not see either Trump or Pompeo in the team, primarily for these reasons. That's why all the people who are most loyal to Trump will hold these positions. The Secretary of State, he didn't have any harsh anti-Ukrainian rhetoric. He was more in line with the Trump campaign, it's true, but in general, he was fine. The National Security Advisor is also not bad. He was a congressman before that, and in principle he was quite good, and in general, he didn't have any particularly negative statements about Ukraine. He was more focused on China and the confrontation between China and Iran. There was no negative stuff about Ukraine. But again, these are all people who will just do Trump's bidding. He doesn't take any big authorities, party bonuses, who could have influenced him to make a decision somewhere and so on. His administration will be completely different from the one that was there the last time, if only for the simple reason that everyone left him then. And it is not a fact that they would even agree to return now. So well, here is who you should really pay attention to and think about what will happen next. First of all, Elon Musk. Because many have already hastened to christen him the heir to Andrei Borisovich. But it is quite possible that he will repeat the fate of the other Andrei Bogdan. Because somewhere along the line, American society is beginning to perceive their extremely frivolous closeness as strange. And there's a lot of talk about how Elon Musk is influencing Donald Trump. Donald Trump is, first of all, a man who doesn't really like to share power. And secondly, he doesn't really like anyone to think that he's sharing power or to see it, obviously. So we'll see what else comes of this, because now a Department of Government performance evaluation is being created. Which will be headed by Elon Musk, but together with Ramaswamy. So it's like this, an attempt to balance this story, although in fact, I think he will play a major role there. Maxim, thank you. For now, we'll leave it here. It's clear that everyone will follow Trump's lead, as many Western media report he's gaining loyalists, even from those who didn't always agree with him, but showed loyalty and trust. In the end, the main thing for us is that our interests aren't severely harmed or played into the hands of pro-Russian forces. Analysts note that these politicians aren't necessarily pro-Ukrainian, but more isolationist, calling for aid to be reduced or stopped altogether. They believe the U.S. should focus on its own issues, not global problems, and act as a powerful internal force rather than an external one. Meanwhile, Trump, aiming to restore the U.S. as a world leader, says he will work hard to end the war between Russia and Ukraine, emphasizing this during an event in Florida. Maxim, he will work harder with Russia, with Ukraine, and this will be a language of blackmail and ultimatums, in particular to Russian dictators, and maybe pressure on us for concessions. The issue of the Russian aggressor is still unresolved, but we're at the stage of negotiations and have a chance to push for a Ukrainian victory. The fact that this information has recently come out about the fourth or fifth point of victory, which, by the way, I said on the very first day that the president addressed the Verkhovna Rada, this was done for Trump, as Western analysts took time to discover the news. It makes sense, given Trump's focus on reducing troops and encouraging Europe to invest more in its own security. As a businessman, he also praised Ukrainian President Zelensky, calling him the best trader in the world. Which is not bad in principle, but just an assessment of how things have come to this, and why is it important? Well, because they don't know anything about Ukraine, Donald Trump, he understands what Russia is. He knows about Russia. He has been to Russia, and he was a businessman, and he knows a lot about what is going on. Again, this is something that is a very correct measure that we explain that we have huge lithium deposits, which is extremely important. Now we have huge shale gas reserves, and Donald Trump is a fan of shale gas production, and there is fracking technology. He has started to implement it in the States and so on, and say, look, there are billions here. Trillions of dollars are probably lying underground, just under the land that is currently occupied by Russian troops. And imagine the situation if you give away not just our territory, but you give them energy dominance. Because lithium, which will be used for lithium batteries, shale gas, other minerals, rare earths, Russia can extract, but only if these territories remain under our control. Your companies will be able to come in, they will get all the benefits, some concessions, some help, whatever. There will be no corruption, there will be some special economic zone, whatever. It will be very beneficial for you, it will be beneficial for us, it will be beneficial for you. Everything will be great, and you will actually give Russia the tools to gain hegemony in the region. And they will further increase the dependence of European countries on their energy resources. So this is one of the main points that we can sell now, that our troops will then replace the Americans at military bases.
до отримання гегемонії в регіоні. І вони ще більше посилять залежність там європейських тих же країн від саме від своїх.
This is also extremely important. It will solve many problems. Americans will save money for everyone. Their military will be at home. Our military, who will be extremely numerous after the war, will get decent jobs. They will not be somewhere in hotspots.
Зекономлять гроші, їхні військові будуть вдома, наші військові, яких зараз буде надзвичайно багато після війни, отримають достойну роботу, вони ж не будуть десь там в гарячих точках знаходитися, будуть у Франції,
They will be in France, Germany, Poland, and on American military bases, receiving decent material support. So this is an extremely important situation where everyone wins, except for the Russian Federation. This is definitely positive, because if American companies come in and replace Chinese companies, it will create benefits for Trump, and it could also lead to a weakening of China. However, the current U.S. President Biden is currently meeting with Xi as the leader of China. How concerned is this Xi really now? And can there be something so important discussed between him and Biden that will change the course of the Russian-Ukrainian war or some White House policy? I think Xi is extremely concerned because he realizes that, yes, there is a trade war somewhere that took place during Donald Trump's first term in office. It didn't do much damage to China, but it's quite possible that now they will act more cunningly and decisively, and now there may be really more serious consequences for China, and Xi Jinping may somehow not have time to do something in this situation. So again, a lot depends on Europe, by the way, because Europe may now be more cooperative with the United States, a little bit stressed, and agree to jointly launch a serious sanctions strike and some kind of customs restrictions on China. Maxim, thank you for your insights, time, and positive energy. See you soon, and take care.